In this video, I'm going to be talking about reproductive rights and reproductive equality. So, I guess I'll start out by kind of giving a debriefing kind of, or an explanation of having a child, which that'll give you my insight into how I view having a child. It is an immensely demanding and mentally and emotionally demanding and draining thing that is basically like the most important thing that you're going to do evolutionarily in your life. And the way you raise a child is going to have huge effects on the next generation. So, when you have a child, you should be ready to have a child. You should be wanting to have the child. You should be ready in every way you can think of. So, that's where reproductive rights come in. And I've already put out my stance on abortion. You know, I think women should have the right to an abortion unless the fetus can be, like, taken out and survive on its own or something. And even then, I mean, I don't think you should kill something that's now a separate living being, but it's still, like, the kind of thing where it would probably be better to kill that little living being that's never actually experienced anything yet and has yet to be around long enough to remember or develop, mentally, than have them grow up in a home where they would be unloved and mistreated and possibly just die from some problem like starvation or some shit. But so, in that sense, I think we should have reproductive equality when it comes to a contract. Now, we have, we have laws regarding sex. And of course, sex is more or less the same thing as having babies. But it's not exactly the same. It should be regarded separately as a separate issue from sex in this matter. But it should hold the same standards if one side of the two people that are required to have a baby, if one of those people says, I don't want to have a baby, I'm not ready yet, and the other, even if they really want to have a baby, they should either, from that point, they should have two options. They should be able to have the baby, but they're not able to say, okay, I'm going to make you pay me child support because I'm having a baby that you didn't want to have. That's not really fair. It's not fair because it can't go around the other way around. It's not really... wait, I just partly explained what I'm looking for and I said it's not really fair, but I've yet to explain what I think is not really fair. Right now, the way it is, if the woman is pregnant and she comes to you, she has total power over the situation because it doesn't matter what you say as a man. If that woman wants to have a baby, she will have it, and she can make you pay, through law by the courts. And it's not fair because if you were to consider that to be the other way around, say the man has utter control of that, where the woman comes to the man and she's pregnant, and it doesn't matter what the woman says, if she wants the baby or not. If the man is going to have that baby, or wants that baby, or doesn't want that baby, that's his choice. That's not fair, because then that man has control over the woman's reproductive rights. And this is the same thing that's happening in the reverse scenario. Now, obviously, it is more intense for women because of biological purposes. Having to get an abortion even if you wanted your baby because you don't want to, force someone to pay child support or any of that stuff. This is simply a legal thing that I'm talking about. Hypothetical. And not sure if I proposed what I was going to say initially right the first time, but yeah. So this would basically, what I'm proposing would be that both parties have to consent in order for, like, unless there's certain situations, like, say, some guy has sex with you and then he just runs the hell away, is just gone, off the grid, then it's clear that he's just, like, trying to get out of this. But in that situation, there should actually be a law that you can charge someone for. A crime. Not something that they're going to be in jail for 20 years for, but, something that they're going to be fined a significant amount for, or, or possibly, put in, like, a local jail for, like, a week or something, because it's not a good thing. But at the same time, those are the kinds of exceptions when someone has clearly run away and left you just holding in a situation where you cannot even get their consent. It's clear that they don't want to have a baby, but they're not, they're not even there. That's where you should be able to take some sort of, legal action, a lawsuit against them, or, you're charged with a crime, and of course, if you're charged with a crime, you have a chance to appeal, so they can appeal it if it's unjust. And so, yeah, I think that this would help a lot with, problems and divorces and things, because divorce is a very complicated thing. Some people get divorced and they hate each other afterwards, despise each other, never want to talk to each other again. And some people get divorced and they're just friends. And then there's people like my parents who are, I guess you could say they're divorced, but they're not legally divorced. They're still legally married. Neither of them has like asked the other to pay child support. I mainly live with my dad, but I go and visit my mom, but my mom did kind of leave, so. But it was a complicated thing, I had it explained to me why they left in great detail, and it happened when I was like 2 or 3, so of course, I had to learn about it far later, and so most of why they divorced happened way before I was born. But I'm not going to get into all that drama, because this is like already a long video. But divorce is a very complicated thing, because, it's like it can be a legal procedure. You can have a divorce legally, or you can just be kind of divorced, like my parents, but they're still legally not divorced. But, so, as I understand it, when my parents had this happen to them, they both said that they don't want a baby, but they're going to come up with the facilities needed to take care of one anyway, being responsible. And they did, of course. Things didn't work out between them, obviously. But if you're wondering, when I look up in this video and I look like I'm looking way up, it's because the camera is tilted back a little bit. So, it really looks like I'm tilted up, and I'm maybe a foot above where the camera is. But I don't really have a good filming space to do this in. But so in these legal agreements, these kinds of things need consent. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming that unless there's a specific reason, you can't just go and secretively divorce your husband, without them knowing, because it's the kind of thing where you both sign a legal contract that says we're divorcing because, when you're married you get tax exemptions and things like that. But so, personally, I think marriage is just kind of a ridiculous idea, because if you really love your partner, then it doesn't matter if you have some sort of legal contract or written agreement that says so. And if you really need one, then maybe you shouldn't be getting married, because you're not trying to bind someone to someone else. That's what it's often used for. You're trying to find the person that you love. In this case, it's now a legal agreement where you can get tax exemptions and benefits from being married. And that's how they're still discriminating against gay people. They're, since the Supreme Court has legalized gay marriage, they have to allow people to get gay married, but they're still trying to do little things, little forms of discrimination like they did with the government when they said, black people are now separate but equal and all this kind of stuff. Well, not really to that extreme, but it is definitely reminiscent of that. Because, there's some places where gay people still don't get the same kind of tax exemptions or things like that that two other consensual loving partners would. And those consensual loving partners, other than having a less likely chance of having a baby, which is good for the economy in a certain way because it makes them spend money, they're still, as economically, useful. They're good because, they're going to spend stuff. Couples are good for spending stuff, as I understand. That's why they do the tax exemptions. Or no, maybe it encourages people to get, I don't know. But, yeah, well, now I'm getting into a land where I don't know really a whole lot about, so I shouldn't be talking too much about it. But if you heard any ideas that you wanted to criticize, do so in the comments below. I am open to ideas and criticisms, as long as any examples you have are backed up with evidence, or, you use sound logic, or whatever, have a decent argument that makes sense. I can see your other side, and if I think your side has value, then that's what criticism is good for, making you learn more. So yeah, those are my views on reproductive rights and some other things regarding marriage.